Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I'm Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is B. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aaron. Um, Happy to be here.
Awesome. Why don't you just start us off by just telling us a little bit about yourself or your story?
Well, in the context of inclusion, I guess it is. I am an inventor and an owner of a business. I invented a three-wheeled walking bike that I did not design for a body with a problem. Generally, mobility devices are a technical solution for a body with a problem, but we're not a body with a problem. We're people that want to just live a happy and
Yep.
engaged, inclusive life. So I invented something that's so damn cool that everybody would love to use it and are now the one on a cool bike instead of like, oh, what happened to you? Or like, I'm not going to talk to that person because it's quite uncomfortable. I don't know if I should bend down in a wheelchair or not. Like, people get really uncomfortable around disabilities, visible disabilities. The other ones, they don't even notice.
Hmm.
And then they get comfortable when they get confronted with it, like, oh shit, I didn't know that. People are really uncomfortable around anything that confronts them, I think, with their own mortality and vulnerability. Yeah, so the walking bike is the Alinker. It gets people at eye level. You can change your life. You can regain your mobility because 60% of people that use wheelchairs can actually still use their legs, are still partially ambulatory or ambulatory. But there was no alternative in the mobility industry, in the mobility world that allowed people to walk on wheels, which is actually what you do on the Alinker. And that has huge benefits. And we've been in business. I think it's the 9th year now that that the Alinkers are in the market. And it's an interesting, it's an interesting thing because you think you do something good, getting people out of wheelchairs. If they don't want to use a wheelchair, wheelchairs are fantastic. But if you can still use your leg and you want to not be in a wheelchair, because people do treat you differently in a wheelchair, the wheelchairs are not the problem. The people that treat people in wheelchairs are the problem in the experience that people have. And so, if you want to be active, engaged, and regain your mobility, the Alinker is a cool thing. But then in the marketing world, it's like, oh, but it's so expensive. Does insurance pay for it? It's like, well, purposely, this is not a mobility, is not a medical device because now we're selling it for 2,800 or something. And if this were a medical device, this is how the market works. I would have to sell it for $7,000-8,000.
Yep.
Then it's okay because insurance pays for it.
Yep.
Now I'm selling it for what I can sell it for and still have, a small company and do what I can. And then it's expensive. It's not. And
Yep.
actually, we just did a study with Stanford that with 72 Alinker users who mapped out trajectory before what their life would have looked like in the next 2-3 years with disabilities and increasing, dependency on the medical system, maybe upcoming surgeries and stuff, and converted that to financial impact. And then once they start using the Alinker, do the same thing. What has changed in your life? And people save between $9,000 and $54,000 per year on medical expenses they no longer have.
Hmm.
And of course, that disrupts the whole system where people are a revenue stream of the medical world. So
Right.
we're having trouble getting this thing to people because the whole mindset is like, I just want to fix a problem in your body with a problem, and I just want to fix it. And that I think is a nice lead into the whole conversation about inclusion because people don't want to talk about things that make them uncomfortable. They don't want to be confronted. And so
Sure.
on inclusion is like, I always like inclusion to what? Why do I want to be included or be included by a system that doesn't want me? as a queerdo, as a disabled person, as whatever. I don't want to be fighting a battle into a system that actually actively excludes me. Otherwise, we would never have to talk about inclusion if the
Yeah.
system wasn't inherently excluding certain groups.
Yeah.
Most groups, actually.
No, yeah, that is a great point because it's just, yeah, because the inclusion I approach it for my daughter, she was sent to a segregated classroom right away in school because we didn't know any better, and then found out after visiting her at lunchtime when she was like in kindergarten, first grade, that there was already kids folding towels in the room, and I was like, hold on a second, like we're kindergarten, first grade, why are we not in reading math at this point? Found out about inclusion, but you're right. It's just we live in rural southern Minnesota, so I mean, if we would have wanted to go to another school district that maybe be more inclusive, I mean, it would have meant a lot of changes which we weren't able to do. So we had to stay in that system. And you are right. If our system it was not as inclusive as we wanted it to be, and it was like you're saying, butting your head the whole time, and you think back, it's like, man, maybe it would have been worth it to try to find some place that was more inclusive inherently, and then, you know, move the family. And at the time, it seemed like too much to do. But looking back, it's like maybe that all the energy we would have saved by, doing that. You never know, but it definitely is something to think about.
Well, your energy is saved in her experience
Yep.
because being segregated
Yep.
just because you've got CP or whatever is making you feel that you're not worthy, is making you feel that you're different and you're less. And that is an imprint that you get from early
Right.
on. Is really hard to undo as you
Yep.
grow up.
For
And
sure.
it's again, it's like I I think the whole internalized stories that we carry, whether we're gender weirdos or disabled people or whatever makes us different and confronting to the so-called mainstream, whatever that is. Majority is not a majority, actually. I did some quick research, quick dirty numbers. So if you add up all the minority groups, the alphabet isn't big enough to group all the groups that we call minorities. And if you try to figure out what the mainstream is, that would be white men that are heterosexual, that are temporarily able-bodied, and that have more than $1 million in the bank. That's less than 1% of the whole population. And if you take away the $1 million in the bank and just white men that are heterosexual and temporarily able-bodied, it's around 22% of the whole population. And that population has made the rest of us all believe that we live in minorities. I don't live in a minority. I don't identify as anything because I live in a world with a vast majority of diverse people, because we are all very diverse. And who I choose to be is also very different than what the sum of my external characteristics you associate with me. Like I've got white skin. You don't know how I move because I'm sitting on a chair right now. You only see my head. But all those things, all the exterior factors, we have been trained to attach values to that, assumptions to that. That's not who we are. Same as people with mobility challenges. We've been reduced to a body with a problem that needs something logistically to get me from A to B. But that's not who we are. We are people that just want to be happy and engaged in life, regardless how we move or what we look like.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't see color and that kind of bullshit, because we do. That's our survival. And we have to. But it's not what my mind discriminates with. Like, is it black or white? Is it green or blue? That is our survival. The things that we attach to that I'm seeing white, therefore I can trust it or not trust it. I see black and therefore I can trust it, not trust it. Those attachments is taught behavior. And that is what we need to in undo in ourselves. Like, what are the things that actually, oh my God, that's not what I think. I feel completely different. Like, I remember um, when I lived in Kenya for a few years, I was always in public transport, always sitting between black bodies, always crammed up in a little matatu and whatever. And then when I was in London, after 2 years or something, I was in the underground. And there was this massive black guy sitting next to me, and I felt myself just leaning into him because that felt comfortable. That is what that was my normal, that was my familiar, to hang between black bodies. So I just hang into it, and I was like, oh, what am I doing? If that had been a white guy, I wouldn't have done that because that was not my normal. And so all those things are taught behavior. What your familiar is, what your comfort is all taught behavior. And I think if we talk about inclusion, it's like going back inside, like really investigate, like, who are we and where do we where do we resonate with? And that doesn't matter how you look. I've got friends in the most, you wouldn't like, the most variety of people, because if you go beyond judging on the outside, it's like, did you choose to be a kind person and be congruent in your choices in life to be kind? And that goes really fast and it's far and it's really difficult in this world because you're constantly trying to avoid all the toxins. In the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that we've been told, and the food and all the rest of it's all toxins and drama that comes at us. So to be truly kind and congruent with being kind is really hard in this world. But that's where I make friends. I don't care how you look. But that's all taught behavior, what we attach to the external characteristics of
Yeah,
we look like.
for
And that
sure.
go and that goes back to, the white supremacist system, the colonial system that we live in, that has three tools: ableism, sexism, racism. And so if we, in those three isms, we identify people on their exterior characteristics, now we judge them and we dehumanize them, really. So we have dehumanized everybody that we put in a minority. Because now it's the browns, the blacks, the whites, the yellows, it's giving people a name. And Martin Luther King always said that the moment you call them slaves, you dehumanize them. And now I can treat them as different humans. And so by all the minorities and all talking about the different minorities and segments in our society, it's dangerous
For
because we're
sure.
not segments. We're a
Yeah.
vast majority of diverse people that just want to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your definition of inclusion if you had to define it?
Well, something that is manufactured by a system that inherently excludes certain groups based on their fear. So as long as I talk about inclusion, I'm playing the game of the excluding system. I don't play that game. I don't want to give it any power. The same as if I would protest against war. I'm talking about war. Why would I talk about war? In my world, there is no war, so I don't need to protest against war. And so, as long as I protest against war, I'm feeding the war industry because that's the language that I'm using. And I think that is the awareness that we need to have around all those issues of inclusion and minorities and fighting for our rights as Black or Hispanic or queer or whatever people. We're not we're not the sum of our exterior characteristics. We're not. We carry our history in what our people have,
Mhm.
you know, experienced, and what I represent to a black person when I meet, as a white person, meet a black person. I need to be aware what I represent because they have associations with what white means in their experience. So that's a very different thing. But yeah, there's that. So I
Yeah,
need to
I
be
mean, Yeah,
of the
I see what you're saying. You're saying, well, let me just make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying that by talking about inclusion, I'm just giving power to like the systems that exclude. Is that, am I understanding you correctly? So then I guess how do we talk about inclusion or how do we talk about these issues without like bringing power to them? How do you approach that?
Well, the question is why it's not everything that you talk about inclusion is
Yeah.
feeding the system, obviously. Because what we're doing now is like we talk about inclusion and sort of unveiling the system that excludes inherently. That is a different thing because that creates awareness like, oh, and why would I want to be included in the system that doesn't want me? And what is that system? What is the rights of that system to exclude me? Why? I'm just one of the human beings in this society. That is a whole different conversation. And then you're not trying to include yourself in a system that will always abuse you, will never treat you as equal. And so creating a group, a magnet, a movement of people that like, yeah, we're not playing that game. We're just creating something that is so fucking cool that everybody wants to be part of us.
Right. Yeah. I
And
like that
creating a
approach.
magnet is where people are attracted to. If you protest against something, people that's not an energy that people are attracted to.
Yeah.
So I never call myself an activist because I'm not, because activism is always in the energy of the system that you're against. Knowing what that system is and why we need to talk about inclusion or why inclusion is even an issue is a different conversation.
Yeah.
But it's the awareness of the words that we're using, the awareness about language, because language has been weaponized. We live in a society that all words that we're using are weaponized. And so be very mindful about, you know, why we use the words, what that does energetically, who it feeds, and what it keeps going. Because
Yeah.
I'm 61 now, and I've been an activist when I was younger. We were fighting against nuclear weapons and whatever. I was in demonstrations to free Palestine 50 something years ago, and look where we are now. It didn't help anything because the system continues to go. So the only thing to let those systems lose their power is to really build something else and not focus. Be aware of the system, but not focus on the system. Don't feed it energy. Create something that is so cool that people of all looks and characteristics are attracted to it because it's an open and free and welcoming group of people that do not measure on the exterior characteristics, but come together in who we are and then do something cool.
Yeah. Love that. So have you been an inventor for a long time or is this your first invention?
I think I've invented many things, but, um, and I think many people actually do, but it's one of those words, like when you're an inventor. Um, I think we constantly invent things. We just don't recognize them because we're not that, you know, and bringing the Alinker to market and actually making it visible as an invention and then saying it's an invention and people's like, well, that it's just the same as the dandy horse 200 years ago. So I'm always, I don't know. I think being an inventor is just the, the fact that we're creative creatures. We've been made into consumers to consume everything that destroys us. But if we just consume, we die. We get depressed. I think we're inherently creative beings that need to be creative to feel alive. And so, yeah, the fact that I invented the Alinker and then made it into market, the idea was nothing. It was just an idea. Making it into a product and bringing that to market nearly fucking killed me. That's really difficult. And this is what I hear a lot from people that know there has to be something better than this, what they can find in the medical device shops. Like, oh my God, why is it all gray and dull and ugly? And it makes you depressed just going into a medical device shop. Like, why? I can go to a bike shop and get the coolest bike as long as I pay. Cannondale is easily $10,000 or something. The moment I have a disability, I can't do that. I can't buy anything cool. And then when it is cool and it's only $2,800, I get vilified that I rip off disabled people. I mean, it's so messed up. That's all messed up in the whole messaging around it, because it's all linked to that language of a medical system that uses people as a revenue stream instead of, you know, giving us the tools that we need to feel good about ourselves.
Yeah. 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 It is interesting. I asked if you're if you'd invent other things and the way you described it, I mean, I'm thinking like if popped into my brain, like we all are, I would say, quote unquote inventors. Cause yeah, there are, you come across a problem, you have to figure it out, either do something differently or you sometimes create little tools or something. So we all do invent things. So is an interesting, never thought about it like that before, but that is true.
And I think
Interesting.
we're fixing problems or trying to find a solution for a
Yeah.
problem and being an inventor are different things, because when you're an inventor, you have to think about things that don't exist yet.
Okay.
And how do you think about things that don't exist if there's no language for it because it doesn't exist yet? And so
Right.
you have to sort of, um, I mean, people say to me always like, you think so much outside the box. And I'm like, what box? Because I haven't been trained to think in a box. My father was an inventor and a very strange man who taught me to play chess without a board. And, when I was 5, with a very strange question. But so I was raised in a strange way. So I don't have the box. Plus, I knew I was queer or whatever that name is, but not in the binary strict model. Like, I wasn't a girl like that. I wasn't a boy like that. So I didn't, like, all the things that were conditioning me in the binary system didn't rub off on me because it didn't apply to me.
Mhm.
So I was lucky in a way. And then my father died when I was 8. And I realized that what I saw is that people all disappeared because they were uncomfortable with talking about death and loss and grief. They didn't know how to do that. So they chose their own comfort by disappearing from us. So there were very young, in my young life, very severe confrontations with, oh, that's how people, okay. So who am I? Who do I want to be in this world that chooses their own comfort over showing up for me? And that is strictly binary. I had to figure out who I was. I had to invent myself. Actually, that's the name of my memoir. It's called Inventing B, because I had to figure out who I was, because nothing that was trying to raise me in messages, marketing, school, parents, whatever, applied to me. I was different. And I see that as a huge gift that I was different. And so when I started the Alinker, I had this sentence that came back over the years. Like, I dream of a world where people who are dismissed today are the leaders to tomorrow, because the people that are dismissed are the people that know a little bit more about life. They have a different perspective on the system that excludes us. And so we know a little bit more about it. So instead of feeling small and trying to be included, I'm like, fuck that. We know a little, sorry about the language, but screw that. I, we're, we're going to have fun together because we've been trained to not feel powerful. That's the power of segmenting people in small minorities, that we feel powerless, that we feel, you know, this black person fighting for their rights, this Hispanic person, this disabled person, this queer person, we're all fighting for our little rights. Why don't we fight together for our rights? And not fight, actually, because why do we need to fight? We are the vast majority of people that just want to be happy. We just need to stop judging on the exterior characteristics and start meeting each other for who we chose to be. Then you've got a very different world.
Right.
That's attractive because people want to be attracted to something. They don't want to have to change or how to fight. We're not fighters. We live in community. We live, in where you can breathe because we're not judged on that what we don't feel we are.
Yeah.
But we have an identity crisis, right? Everybody has an identity crisis because we've got internalized stories about who we are. And you see that in the disabled community a lot, that when there is a solution, an Alinker is something that, and then people's like, they have bought into being the disabled person. So if there is something that can change that, they don't want to go there. It's really
Mhm.
interesting. Not many, but I've come across that. Or people, caregivers who give care to somebody in a wheelchair, to their wife or their husband or whatever. And then there's a linker. They become more independent. The caregiver now has a problem because the identity of the caregiver, they don't know who they are if they're not the caregiver anymore. So the identities that we assumed with stories that are not our stories, that is for everything the underlying issue. Addiction is the same thing. We're addicted to the stories, not to the substances. But our whole society has taught us to focus on the substances, smoking or drinking or drugs. That's not the problem. The problem is the stories that we tell ourselves that we're not worthy. For everything, that's the underlying thing. We have been taught to be unworthy and unhappy and unhealthy because guess what? That makes for the best consumers. We're going crazy and trying to buy all that stuff to feel better. So it keeps us trapped in being a consumer of all those things that destroy the earth. In the meantime, we're still not happy. Our depression numbers are out through the roof. That's only because we consume and we don't create anymore. We need to create communities where people can feel home.
All that stuff you just talked about how the stories that we've been told to keep us consumers, do you feel like it's all been done on purpose to get us to this point where we're totally
It's
dependent and stuff?
it's a system, Aaron.
Yeah.
We don't live in a culture. We live in an economic model. I've lived 10 years in other countries, in Afghanistan for 3.5 years, in the Sudan, in Kosovo, in Indonesia, in Africa, in a few countries. None of those countries have a binary system because it's not the economic model. All those countries have more gender expressions that are accepted culturally because we're humans. We're not a binary this or that. That's a very colonial, capitalistic model. We live in an economic model where we need a customer profile, men, woman, children, cornerstone of society. That's the marketing model. And anything that looks or behaves differently has to be shoved in a minority because we're a little bit disruptive to the system.
Mhm.
And we've all been made to feel unhappy. Also, white, heterosexual, able bodied guys, they're also unhappy because they have to always be the fixer. They need to wake up 2 eggs in the armpits and just always be the big guy. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
We're just people that want to be happy and live in community, do something fun together. And we don't need all that material shit around us. It's killing us and it's killing the planet. We are the dumbest experience in the universe at the moment, killing the very environment that we need to survive. It's the dumbest experiment ever. And we're
Yeah,
doing it
yeah, it's
mind,
crazy. Yeah.
you know,
What is one tip you can share to help the listeners to be more inclusive today? So just something everybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
become aware of the stories that we tell ourselves and start feeling our power. We're not powerless, especially people that have been shoved in minorities are the most powerful people. Like with selling the Alinker and doing the Alinker community, I have met the most amazing people because they were confronted with life, because they had to figure out who they were now that the system didn't work for them anymore. Because the moment you get a disability, all of a sudden your whole world changes, not by who you are, your disability, but how the world treats you. And all of a sudden, the things that used to work for you don't work for you anymore. And then it's like, oh, that's how that works? But, disabled, the world is not accessible. It's like, it was never accessible because it wasn't designed to be accessible because we're making people uncomfortable. The system is very fragile. You see it in all the people that are now in the White House and whatever. They're super fragile people because they've never been confronted with what it is to be different. They thought they were the leading pack. And in a world where diversity slowly starts, they feel that they lose something because if you're used to privilege, equality feels as oppression. And so they literally feel that they're the victim of what's happening right now because they're losing their privileges, not understanding that their privileges was always over the back of all the rest of the people. So what we need to start feeling is how powerful we are when we come together in who we chose to be.
That's great. Where's the best place for everybody to connect with you?
Me personally, on be@thealinker.com. So be@thealinker.com is my email.
Okay.
Thealinker.com is the website. I'm also a composer of neuroacoustic music, brain entrainment music, and I've just started putting my compositions out to the world, and they can help people relax and heal and restore. It's quite amazing. And that's on Bandcamp. BE Alink. There's a few more websites, but that's if people send me an email, it's like, hey, I want to know more. I can send more links. And
Awesome. And then did you say you have a book out too?
yes, I have a book out. That's my memoir. Where is it? I don't have it here, but no, I do have it here. That's my book, Inventing Bee, a memoir, and a little bit of a manifesto because I can't help to call things as they are, and that makes it a bit of a manifesto.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ready for the last question?
Yes.
Do you like spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
I only eat plants.
So that's a no.
Spam is garbage, toxic, and it makes you sick. And anything that has animal products in it is abusing animals. I don't like to abuse other sentient beings, so I only eat plants. It's also better for the world, better for our health, and better for the planet.
Yeah, I asked that question of everybody that I interviewed because I live near where they make spam and where the spam museum is located. So it's interesting hearing the answers. So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
a
Do
something
you?
I spot on people.
You eat spam?
I do eat spam maybe twice a year. Yeah, I do.
Everything that we eat, I always say it's not what we eat, it's who we feed. And if we don't feel worthy, I can justify putting crap in my face. If I love myself, I can't justify eating crap because that's not what you do to a person that you love.
Yeah,
It's not what you eat, it's who you feed. And then it but it's again that whole reverse thing.
right,
It's not like about drugs or smoking. It's about the story that we tell ourselves.
right.
It all
Yeah,
goes back to that story. Like, have I been told to be unworthy and to
right.
feel less? As long as I keep that internalized alive, I'm part of the system. We need to start feeling our powers and undo the stories that we've internalized. They're bullshit.
You
We're
really
div-
got me thinking.
we're divine creatures, really, all
Right,
of us.
for sure. It's interesting how or feel like a lot of what you've been talking about today is kind of coalescing for me. It's from different sources, but it's all kind of coming together. So I really appreciate you being on and talking today and all of the stuff that you talked about.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for having me as a guest, Aaron.
Absolutely. To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.